So I own this house that I rent out, and my brother has been living there since 2016. He pays me $1,200 every month for rent. He has 3 kids, one is 18 and still in high school, and the other two are both 24. The oldest one doesn't live at home anymore because he travels a lot for work. Now my brother got married last December, and his new wife moved in with him. She also brought along her 3 kids, making the house pretty crowded. The big issue started because my niece, the 18-year-old, doesn't really get along with her new stepmom or step-siblings. It's been tough for her. The biggest problem popped up over who gets to use the basement. Now, this basement isn't just a regular basement. It's all fixed up with its own living space and even has its own door to go outside. My niece has been living there, and she loves it because it's like having her own little apartment. But then, the stepmom decided that she wanted the basement for her own son, who is 22 and still living at home. She thought it would be perfect for him. This caused a huge argument. The stepmom told my niece that she would have to move out of the basement and just accept the change. When my niece told me about this, she was super upset and crying. She really didn't want to give up her space. So, I decided to call my brother to talk about it. I told him it wasn't right for his wife to kick our niece out of her room to make space for her son, who she called good for nothing, just because he doesn't do much. Well, my brother didn't take that well. He basically told me to stay out of it and hung up on me. He said it was his family matter and I shouldn't interfere. So now it's a bit of a mess. My brother is stuck in the middle trying to figure out what to do, and I'm worried about my niece feeling pushed out of her own home. It's like a big drama over who gets to live in the basement, and everyone's feelings are hurt. We're all trying to figure out how to handle it without causing more fights. It's like a mini World War III in our family right now. After my brother told me to mind my own business over the phone and hung up, I felt like I had to do something more to make sure my niece wasn't unfairly pushed out of her living space. I was really worried about her, so I decided to send my brother an email. In that email, I laid out 2 options pretty clearly. Either I would raise the rent to $3,000 a month if my niece moved out of the basement, or I would consider evicting all of them if things didn't improve. I also made it clear that I didn't want his stepson living there at all. I told my brother that if his stepson was still there in 30 days, I would start eviction proceedings. This definitely got his attention, and he completely backed down. He was furious with me, sure, but he was also angry at his daughter and his wife. He told his sister-in-law to never bring up the issue of the basement again and instructed his stepson to find his own place to live. It seemed like the problem was solved. I also told my niece to call me if her stepmom caused her any more trouble. However, things didn't settle down in the way I hoped. My brother is white, and he complained to other family members about how I interfered. He said if I had just let him handle it, he would have resolved it himself. Now, he says his marriage is in a tough spot, and nobody in his household is talking to each other. Somehow, he thinks that's my fault. I keep wondering, did I involve myself too much? The one part where I feel I might have been too harsh was when I insisted his stepson should move out. This definitely made things more strained for his wife. It's tough to know if I did the right thing. I was trying to protect my niece and ensure she wasn't mistreated, but it also caused a lot of tension. Maybe there was a better way to handle it, but at the moment, I felt like I needed to take strong actions to make sure my niece felt safe and secure in her own home. Now for the comments before the update. Not the a-hole. You did the right thing. Far, far too often, people totally concede to their spouses and hurt their own children out of their own selfish cowardice. I see it all the time. It's even more disgusting when it's 2 younger kids. If you can't put your kids first, you shouldn't have had them. If you let your spouse put their kids before yours because of anything, you're a coward. And in a toxic relationship, I'm so glad you did what you did. It was the right thing. You didn't let your brother's spouse run all over his daughter in favor of her own kid. Not the a-hole at all. Niece has been living there, and to take her own room away from her for an adult is ridiculous. It's not a big deal for a 22-year-old to live at home. But going in and taking a room from someone who's lived there for 6 years is ridiculous. Good for you, for standing up for her. Not the a-hole, your house and all, and your connection is to your brother's kids, not the entirely unrelated kids of his new wife. Sounds like she's been stepmom from hell for your niece, which is both obnoxious and wrong. And your brother should have stopped that before it started, but didn't. Update. It's been brought up so much. We are on a month-to-month, and my state does not have rent control laws. We've always had a good relationship, so we've never had a lease. I never gave permission either in writing or verbally for him to move in his new family. I never said anything until my niece called me crying. I don't like the stepson because he is an entitled piece of crap who was gunning for the basement because he thought that since he was older, he deserved more privacy. I called him a good for nothing because he has some crackpot belief system about working, so he does not even work. I don't know any details of it because I did not care enough to learn about his crackpot philosophy. My brother called me this morning and said that he blamed himself for all of this, and he should have never delayed in telling his wife that her son could not have the basement. He was really busy with work and wanted to have an actual discussion versus just saying no. He did not expect his wife to tell his daughter that it was going to happen. He acknowledged it was a huge red flag, and they will be getting marriage counseling. He said he made it abundantly clear that she was never. His words approach his daughter about giving up her room and that no one was allowed in the basement unless they were invited by my niece. He is, as we speak, getting the silent treatment from wifey. He said when I called him, he just found out that his older adult kids FaceTimed his wife and really hurled some insults at her. Then they sent him some not-so-nice messages about betrayal and being a henpecked. Then I called and told him off, and he was really upset and felt attacked from all sides. He said he was very disappointed with the threats I made and wanted to set up a time where we could talk more in depth and make some future decisions about the house. I blame the sister-in-law for this whole fiasco. She has been checked, though, and knows better than to try and flex their muscles in my niece's home. That is where we currently stand. My brother might not be as spineless as I thought. I don't know how his marriage can survive. She made enemies with his kids. Story 2. When my husband, G29, male, and I, 31 female, were still dating, my cousin died, and I came into a large inheritance. It was enough to pay off my student loans, get a newer car, invest in some stocks, and I still had some money left. I decided to fulfill my dream of owning acreage for a peaceful getaway from the city. I ended up finding a gorgeous 60-plus acre plot of land for a very reasonable price within 2 hours of where we lived. And best of all, it had a little house on it. We ended up moving in while we were still dating. The house needed a lot of work, so I hired professionals to do most of the remodeling, rewiring the house, replacing the roof, updating the plumbing, etc. And then me and G did the easier tasks, replacing the flooring, painting, replacing broken windows, etc., to save money. I paid for all the materials to remodel the house and never charged him any kind of rent to compensate him for his time, which allowed him to use the extra money to pay off some of his debts and put some money away. It took about a year, but we got it done, and the house is adorable. We've been married for a couple of years, and yesterday he was talking about how he wants to have a storage shed built on the property because I am pregnant. And the room we use for storage is going to be the nursery. I encouraged him to rent a storage unit instead, but he did not like the idea because in the long run, it would be cheaper to invest in a storage shed and just take the money out of our joint account. I then offered to pay for it out of my personal account, which was the leftover inheritance money. We contacted a local professional and started the process of having it built. Then a few days ago, he asked me why I insisted my money was used to pay for it. I said that it was my house, and he should not have to pay out of his pocket to maintain it. He retorted, saying that it was our house. He helped remodel it. He has lived in it for more than 4 years, and we will be raising our child in this house. I reminded him that I bought the house, paid for all the work to be done, and I pay the property taxes. He then got mad and said something like, "So I don't get to have a home that is mine." I thought on what he said for a moment and reminded him that he came into this marriage with a large savings account and told him that it would be enough to pay for a down payment and said he could get a mortgage, rent it out, and let the tenants pay it off so he could have a house if we divorced. This seemed to piss him off more because he went into another room and is still ignoring me. Then I got a call from my father-in-law, and he told me that he spoke with JE about the situation and said that I was in the wrong and that all property between a man and wife is shared and dividing things into his and hers is harmful. Then today, I spoke to my brother about it, and he thinks I'm putting my assets above my husband. So am I, the a-hole? Edit. We both signed a prenup before we got married. Also, he was compensated for his labor and time. The money he has that I suggested he invest in a house was saved before our marriage because he lived with me and I paid all the bills. Edit 2. I live in a community property state. If he contributes anything to the property financially, he has a right to it. If we divorced regardless of the prenup. Edit 3. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for their responses. It was very helpful to see so many different viewpoints on my predicament. I had a heart-to-heart with my husband, and we both discussed our feelings on the matter. I reminded him that, unlike me, he grew up in a stable, financially comfortable home, and I explained that my motivations did not come from a lack of love for him, but anxiety from my mother and my financial struggles after my parents divorced. He said that although he knows that it was important to me to legally be the owner of the house, our conversation about the show had left him feeling like he has no control over our family home and like he is a temporary guest instead of my husband. Ultimately, after talking it out, We agreed that the best course of action is to purchase a second home together with our joint funds and make that our primary residence. My house and land will be used as a weekend getaway instead of our primary residence. While I am a little sad that I will spend less time on my property, I'm very happy that we found a compromise which allows me to protect my assets and gives him more of a feeling of connection and equal ownership to our marital home. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole for how you handled it. It's obvious it's your house legally, but you didn't have to make him feel like the place he's living isn't his home too. Moreover, the divorce comment was totally unnecessary and particularly cruel. What was the point of it? To make him feel even worse. It's pretty messed up. Not the a-hole. It was your money and your investment. You've made it clear to him in lots of ways. It's your property. He has the opportunity, thanks to your generosity, to build his own portfolio, or if he's so comfortable with sharing assets. Why don't you buy another property jointly, hold strong, and keep this property separate? Yes, you are married, but if you don't want to share, that's your right, not the a-hole. This isn't Disney, and life is not a fairy tale. Commitment and making the best effort to maintain a long and healthy marriage is all well and good. But like my mom always says, love does not take away intelligence. You're protecting your assets, and it's not like it's out of the blue. The fact that there's a prenup about it shows that it is known that the property would fully be yours, regardless of if you guys are together or not. And he agreed to honor that legal document when he married you. Letting him invest now invalidates that and makes him entitled to half of it in case of a divorce, which is a pretty common thing. Relationships fail sometimes, and that's a fact. Story 3. My girlfriend and I were in our mid-late 20s, have been together for about a year and a half. We met in school through a mutual friend, but are in different programs. She went to an excellent undergrad on a completely full ride, and at graduation paid off her $3K of student debt within a year. She grew up poor and had no financial support, worked 3 part-time jobs in college. So that money was for emergency incidentals, like getting a new laptop after her stopped working and last-minute flights for her family when a relative died. To be clear, part of why I love her so much is her resilience and work ethic. She worked full-time in a well-paying industry for a few years before pursuing her professional degree. Think law, med MBA, etc. She crushed her applications and ended up with a full tuition, scholarship, and stipend. But unlike undergrad, it didn't cover cost of living. So she again took out student loans. I love this girl and I really want to marry her. We've been talking about our post-graduation future since we finished about the same time she revealed to me that she has a maxed out credit card of $6,000, and she emptied her whole 401k about $20,000 to subsidize her living expenses, and will be graduating with about $60,000 in student loans. Basically, she no longer has any assets except the stuff she owns, which isn't luxury, but generally nice. When I finish my PhD, I'll have zero debt since I lived very frugally on my Stephenson scholarships. We currently split $5,050 on just about everything we do. She wants us to jointly put all our money towards eliminating her debt ASAP so we can start saving for a wedding house and kids. She's a very independent woman and says she would have asked for a prenup if she wasn't a student on no salary. Here's the issue. I told her I'm proud of her, but I don't think I have anything to do with her financial choices she made before I met her. I've always lived a frugal life while she spent her expendable income before going back to school, going on week-long vacations to the tropics and fancy dinners and buying nice things. She's not the type to go on shopping sprees, but doesn't think twice about going out unexpected. And she isn't reckless. I think she could have saved a lot more and been in less debt given her income. This pissed her off. When we graduate, she will easily be earning a 6-figure income while I will be living off an adjunct salary or worse to begin with in this economy. Unless I get really lucky. I'm happy to contribute to rent or mortgage or anything we do together if I can afford it. But she thinks it's unfair that I'm debt-free and won't help her with hers when she believes she'll be the breadwinner forever. My friends think I'm trying to be a trophy husband and holding her back. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. I don't think this is really am I the a-hole question. It's just something you have to decide between you. But how important is a wedding house and kids to you? You may have to wait longer for those things if she's paying off the debt herself. She may also resent you for it. Rightly or wrongly, no a-holes. Just be sure this is the line you really want to draw. Part of marrying someone is combining your lives, and there's nothing clean about that at all. If you think you can cleanly divide your past lives this way and everything else will be joyful and harmonious, I suspect you'll be in for quite a surprise down the road. Marriage is 100% compromise for the benefit of both of you, so neither individual gets everything the way they want it. So just be sure you're not making a principled stand for the sake of being principled. Also, Check that superiority complex at the chapel door when you get married. Sure, you agree with how you spend money and think she's wrong for spending money the way she does. You're still not better than her. You're just a different person than her. Not the a-hole because it's your money, and you have the right to do whatever you pleased with it. However, sticking to this is how you lose that woman. Honestly, if she's going to be making big bucks and wants to pull money, that's good for you. You'll basically be pulling a part of her salary. But besides the financial benefit, you have to see that either she's going to be financially incompatible with you, or you have to change your judgment of her spending and debt. If you're with this woman for life, she won't magically change. This debt will remain and her feelings of being alone with her financials. Also, you get all of her past when you marry her. People don't like this fact, but it's true. Baggage is emotional, financial, and familial, and you will help her carry all of it one way or another. Figure out if you want to. Story 4. Mess with my kids? Lose your house. I've M50, got 2 stepsons, who I just call my sons as I've been in their life since they 8 and 10 and are now young men. My wife and I made it a point to have a great relationship with their dad, Jason, and made sure he had a chance to be around as much as possible, even staying at our place frequently to be around his boys, as he lived over an hour away and couldn't afford to live closer. Jason had a crazy ex-GF who had tried to claim they were married, variously saying common law, or that they were married in secret, or married on an Indian reservation. But he had a restraining order out against her because she was nuts and had tried various ways to screw up his life. The ex is a horrible person. She had been arrested several times for forgery and fraud. She and Jason had a fiery relationship, but he had it in his head that he should make it work as he did like her daughters and grandson. But the ex got him sent to prison for violating his probation when he left the county to go to his mom's funeral and hadn't filed an appropriate form. I'm a little unclear on this part, but she played a major role in it. After he got out several months later, she wanted him back, and he wasn't having it. He made a clean break, moved to a new town, but she continued to harass him, thus leading to the restraining order. She would send texts to people pretending to be police investigating, saying he was drunk driving or taking drugs or pretending to be friends' family to spread rumors and hurt him. She even sent texts to my kids from burner phones, pretending to be other family or friends, saying awful things about their dad. Jason died unexpectedly of a heart attack, and it was a shock to all of us. He was finally living in peace, had great relationships with friends and his sons, and was the happiest he had ever been. He didn't have much. He lived in a single-wide trailer a friend had let him stay in for free, some boxes of tools, old comics, video games, D&D books and modules, mementos from his times in the Marines, and an old 2009 pickup, which on several occasions he had promised my oldest son, let's call him Paul. Jason didn't have a will, and my wife became the executor of the estate because at the time of death, both the sons were minors and sole heirs. We packed up the things out of Jason's trailer and took the truck, which had Jason's name on the title but had to wait for the death certificate to retitle it in Paul's name. But the ex called Jason's sister demanding the truck saying it was hers, and posting on FB she was reporting it as stolen, etc., which really pissed me off. After we got the death certificate, we went to the DMV and found out that she had stolen the title to the truck by forgery, saying she was the only heir and we couldn't transfer the title. My son was driving around with a packet documenting everything in case he was pulled over for driving a stolen vehicle. We had to get a lawyer and start a special process that took several months before a director at the DMV fixed it, and we were able to title the truck with the ex continuing to threaten and cause problems, and made everyone miserable, and cost us several thousand in legal fees. Early last year, we got through probate court. The ex never showed, in spite of saying that she was the wife and sole heir. The court declared the boys as the sole heirs and my wife as executor of the estate in their names. Instead of showing up, the ex sent an email to the court saying she couldn't make it because of work, she doesn't have a job, and that Jason was never around his kids. He didn't miss a single HS football game home or away and never missed a home track meet, and that they were just leeching off his SSI for the back child support. She went on with a bunch of other non-relevant shit just to trash my wife and sons, and pretty much said it didn't matter what the judge said, that she should get everything. During this time, we found out that Jason's name was on the deed of the ex's house. In order to get a reduction in property taxes because of Jason's disabled veteran status, she had filed papers to put him on the deed, but not the mortgage. If she had just left my kids alone, we would have let it go, but she had pushed principal beyond the point of denial, so we filed suit for half the house. Property is worth about $380K. We went to court-ordered mediation, and she rejected a mediated settlement of a fraction of the value, which we would have taken. In April, Her lawyer dropped her, and so she got a continuance on the first hearing. She then claimed that she had found a will from Jason designating her as sole heir, in addition to another signed paper that she found as a quitclaim deed from Jason for the house. I did wonder if it was this or her not paying him which caused him to drop her. She was going to go back to probate court to reopen, appeal, probate, and needed time for that, which the judge granted. On Tuesday, finally went to court on the deed to the house. She no-showed. The judge had inquiries to the probate court, and she never filed any papers. The trial lasted less than 10 minutes as the judge recorded the facts and awarded the estate half the property. They will impanel 3 lawyers to determine how the property will be sold, and she's going to lose her house, and for the first time in her miserable life, face the consequences of her actions. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for spending my son's university fund on a trip to Europe to drink beer like I always threatened, instead of giving it to his stepbrother after he passed away? My son was smart. Smarter than me. I almost requested a paternity test because he was so damn intelligent. That is a joke. My ex and I divorced when he was about 12. She remarried when he was 14. I did when he was 16. I had an RESP set up for him. That's an education fund in Canada. As long as he went for post-secondary education, he could use the money for anything. I always told him that I was okay with him not going to university. That way I could use the money I had saved up for him to go to Belgium and buy some beer from monks that only allow you to buy one case. He knew I was joking and he always played along. He wouldn't let me get his goat. When he got accepted to McGill, it was the proudest moment of my life. I took him out for a beer to celebrate his achievement and mourn the loss of my trip to Europe. My son was struck and killed by a drunk driver in March. I'm dealing with it. My ex is dealing with it. My wife has been nothing but my rock in this. She is holding me up. I was dealing with the funeral arrangements and everything when my ex came to talk to me about his money. She knew he had a scholarship and was just going to use the money for living expenses and an emergency fund. She asked me what I was going to do with it. I said I was going to do what I always said I would. I was going to Europe to drink beer. She asked if she could have it for her stepson. I thought about it and said no. Her husband is a decent enough person, but he made it clear that he wasn't responsible for any expenses for my son. Beyond food and shelter and stuff, obviously. Like I said, he is decent. I said I was not going to do that. I was going to go drink beer in my son's honor. She says I'm wasting thousands of dollars. And I guess I am. I have to give back the government portion of the fund. But I don't care. My ex thinks I'm being stupid and irresponsible wasting my son's money like this. I don't care. My son would laugh his ass off if he knew I actually did it.